Hello everybody, I'm all excited here. I'm unpackaging my food dehydrator. I bought this at Earth's General Store, another expensive purchase. This one was $303 including the GST. I could have got one without the frills, but this one here, it comes with the instruction book and all the things that you see there. So everybody said to buy the largest one that you could get your hands on, and that's what I did. This is a 9 tray. And everybody said to get Excalibur brand, so that's what I did. This one here comes with a pretty good instruction book, and I'm going to use it for my broccoli. And it comes with a basic guide right on the machine. So it's got 9 trays, 9 drying trays, and a bunch of these mats for each tray, I guess. There's a couple of extra mats that it came with. So anyways, I've had this thing for a month. I can't believe I haven't used it yet. I have this broccoli, so I thought, well, I'll try it. And a broccoli, apparently it only is a fair thing to dehydrate, but I'm going to do it anyway. So anyway, I'm going to cut this stuff into smaller pieces, and I guess the pieces have to be fairly uniform so that it dehydrates and they're done at the same time. A lot of this broccoli is pretty grim, not exactly store-bought quality, but you could tell by looking at me I'm pretty omnivorous. There's a YouTube channel called Dehydrate to Store, and this woman says to blanch your broccoli. The instruction book that came with the Excalibur machine said that you can blanch it or you can do it without blanching it. I've decided to blanch mine. Because they're a little bit big for fitting in between the trays, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove half the trays. And then it'll fit in, and I think by removing the trays there might be better airflow. At least that's my theory. Okay, so I've been kind of boiling these, steaming them. More like boiling them because the water's in there. And the woman said not to have them mushy, and I think we're there. So what I'll do is I've got some of them here. I'm going to plunge them in ice water. I've just got a pot with ice water in there. I don't know whether you can see that. The one on the left is a little bit brighter green than the one on the right, which is raw still. And that's what I guess you're trying to get, is that bright green color. So I'll go ahead and blanch the rest of it now. Okay, so I ended up with 4 loosely packed trays, and we'll cack this thing up. The book agrees with this chart, and it says to cook it at 52 degrees Celsius for broccoli. So, turn it to 52 Celsius. And see how long it takes. Okay, so the instructions said broccoli was for 10 to 14 hours depending on the humidity. It's been high humidity. We're 11 hours and 15 minutes right now, and they look like crispy critters to me. Anyway, they look quite different than they did this morning, and they're quite brittle. They're crunchy. I can see why they say they're only fair for dehydrating, but I've read, actually I can't read, what I've seen on YouTube is that things sometimes are dark. They kind of look dark, nasty looking, but things will lighten up after they're rehydrated. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I was able to cram those 4 trays and all that broccoli into one 2-quart jar. Perfect. One of the reasons I use YouTube is I'll document this now and I can look back on it and see if it worked or not. 11 hours and 15 minutes is what I did with this broccoli. YouTube is good for personal use. Anyway, that's enough about dehydrating. Let's get on with the garden tour. Snow peas and snap peas are kind of like zucchini. If you ignore them, they'll get out of hand in a hurry. I'm way overdue for picking them. So I got a bunch of snap peas there on the left. And I got some snow peas here on the right. Snow peas are getting played out. The wife wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot fork, but I'll eat them. Like I said in my last episode, I'm all excited about my cabbage. Let me remove the... This thing is totally tattered and open. I seen cabbage moths trapped inside of it yesterday. Anyway, let's remove the cover and we'll have a better look. So the broccoli I just did is from my 4 plants out front. In the brassica dome I had 2 extra here. Yeah. I'll see what I can glean from them, and I think I'll yank those plants to make room, because behind them I have 4 Brussels sprouts and I want to make room for them. You can see the Brussels sprouts are just starting to form little sprouts. And this particular broccoli I'm gonna just stick in the fridge. Also in the cabbage dome I've got 3 Princeton cabbage. That's a late season 110-day cabbage. And you can see they're quite a ways from being done. Very loose leaves, which is good because I have a pile of cabbage that is ready today. On the other side of the Brussels sprouts I have 3 Hercules cabbage. Here's 2 of them. They're about the size of basketballs and they're hard like a rock, so I best be harvesting them today before they split. Those are a 75-day cabbage. And this is a late start 75-day cabbage. It's a purple cabbage. It's pretty small even for that type of cabbage, but you know, it's hard like a rock too. So I'm gonna have to harvest that today as well. Here's about how big the purple cabbage typically gets. I guess I'll have to harvest this one too. It's earmarked for borscht. Yeah, but they do store good in the fridge, so I will be able to use it up. That loose clump of leaves would be my Now I'm confused. It looks like I've got some kind of a hydra cabbage here. I've never seen this before. I'm sure this is a Hercules cabbage, and you can see it's got the same root stock and it's got multiple heads. I'll pull it up and I'll give you guys a better look at it. This isn't 2 plants. So we got 1 root ball. There's a pretty decent head. Here's what I wanted. This is the Hercules head. And this is for my sour cabbage. So this Hercules has given us 2 heads. And if I would have left it, it's starting another head. Oh well. I've never seen that before. You know, one thing I am aware of is that when you harvest your cabbage for the first time, what you can do is you can score it with a knife like that, And they say you can have 4 small heads, like baseball-sized heads, grow from those 4 quadrants. I don't know if it's related. I can assure you that was one plant though, but I didn't do that trick. Here's another one of the Hercules cabbage, and you can see a side branch coming off of it. It's starting to form another head as well. Anyway, here's all the garbage left over. I decided to yank the 2 broccoli out of there to make more room for the Brussels sprouts. And that, gardening fans, is a good cabbage harvest. So because I've opened up the one side here now by removing all those cabbages, what I've decided to do, you can see the Brussels sprouts are approaching the roof of the cabbage dome. I'm going to move the legs in, thus making it taller. We're all nice and opened up now. It'll get more sunshine, more fresh air, less likely for rotting. So that's better. They've got a little more room to stretch their legs. Like I said, it's very wet in there. I had 17 brassicas crammed in that tiny little space. They tend to hold the moisture in. It is very soggy in there and things will rot. I actually had some cabbage loss last year because it was so wet. So now that we've cleared it out and I've got rid of the weeds and stuff, it should stay a little bit drier. There, all done. Pretty half-assed job on this netting here. I'll have to do a better job next year. I got big gaps here. You can see that leaf sticking out there, kind of like your feet hanging out from the covers in your bed. Big holes in it over there. I got a gap there. Anyway, it keeps them out kind of. So yeah, that worked out pretty good for me. Not only do I make the dome taller by moving the things over a foot, I've also opened up some more space for my cucumbers. Carrots. And hiding in there is some parsnips between the carrots and the Russian banana potatoes and the corn. My beans I had to reseed this year, so they're lagging behind. I'm looking forward to using up my cabbages here. Oh, there's a bean. Cabbages keep good in the fridge. Normally, my single biggest day of plunder in the garden is borscht day. So I should be doing borscht here in a week or so, once my beans are ready. My peas, of course, are already ready. Got some volunteer dill there. One there and one over by the peas. Hopefully I'll be needing that dill soon. The cucumbers, as you can see, are flowering like crazy. And I'm expecting to start pickling here in the next week or so. I've been eating piles of tomatoes now for about a month, but not for a good reason. As you can see, I got the blight on my one type of tomato is the subarctic. They're blighting out already, so I'm canning tomatoes here much earlier than usual. These are faring a little better. These are the Primo Reds, and I have a bunch of Roma tomatoes, and the Roma tomatoes looking really good. But these subarctics are playing out. And I got some volunteer sunflowers. I always let them grow. There's a bird feeder just above there. Anyways, because the tomatoes are blighting out, I'm gonna do some canning 3 weeks earlier than what I did last year. So I won't bore everybody with all the gory details. I just wanted to share one thing. These are pints. What I'm gonna put in them is half a teaspoon of salt, a half a teaspoon of sugar, a little bit of pepper, and half a teaspoon of lemon juice, and then I'm going to top them up with tomato juice. And today I'm going to be using Old Faithful to can them. And they all sealed, and they all have no siphoning issues or anything like that. Okay, so here's something cool about that superfluous cabbage, the Hydra cabbage, the extra head. last year when I fired up my sour cabbage, and I'll show that to you in a minute, I used 3 heads of Hercules, and I had to go buy a store-bought head to fit in the crock, and the store-bought head had to be a smaller head. And what do I see before me? 3 Hercules heads and a smaller type head. We'll see if we can fit them perfectly in the crock this year. Anyways, as you can see, these cabbages are in pretty good shape. They haven't been eaten by cabbage worms. So what I'll do is I'll peel the outer leaves off. I've already kind of washed them. And what I do is I core them. I'll core them before I put them in the crock. So I'll just take and cut a cone-shaped section out, because you're not going to use that anymore. So that's ready to go in the crock. Okay, so I got my cabbages cored and the outer leaves peeled off and cleaned up and ready to go. The recipe for the brine is 21 cups of water, a cup of vinegar, and a cup of pickling salt. It's an 8-gallon crock, so I'm going to put 2.5 times the recipe. I don't know if that's going to work or not. I don't remember what I used last year. So I got 52.5 cups of water. I'm going to get this thing boiling, and I'm going to pour it over the cabbage screaming hot. Pickling salt and vinegar ready to roll. So this is the exact amount of cabbage I got in there last year, but I think the heads might have been slightly smaller last year. Yeah, see, this one barely fits in. You know you got big cabbages when they won't fit in the crock. Well, it was an epic struggle. I had to cut one of the cabbages in half. We're still way too full. But what'll happen is I'll pour that hot water over them, and eventually in a couple of hours they'll kind of soften up, and I'll be able to put these stones on top like they're supposed to be. I think even if I can't get the stones on, I'll be okay. I've just dumped my big pot of brine in there, the 2.5 batches of brine mix, and it's very close. You can see the water is still bubbling there. So I got to put maybe another half a batch of brine in there to get them covered up. I'll mix that up and dump it in. It's funny, it's been several minutes and it's still bubbling down in there. I'll top it up. So that's pretty full. I think it's not entirely covered right now, but this time tomorrow those cabbages will settle and they'll be completely submerged. You use these stones, of course, if you've watched my cabbage roll video. These stones keep your cabbage submerged below the fluid level to keep the air off of them. I may be able to put these stones on in a day or two after it settles and softens up. But for now, I'm just going to put the lid on with no stones, and I will try and squish it down at a later point in time. To seal this thing up, keep the air out of it, you just fill in the trench with water and keep it filled in. This lets the gases escape when it's fermenting, and it keeps the air from getting back in. So it's about 4 hours later. I just got home from my parents after rotivating the overflow garden. As you can see, I've managed to get the stones on there. The cabbage softened up, and that's where we're at now. So this crock weighs 45 pounds empty, and when it's full, it's heavy. So when you're setting something like this up, you probably want to make sure that you've got it where you want it to sit for the next month.